Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Traveling Time with Dan Show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course with me, Dan Blanchard. Today I'm in Washington, D.C. at the World War II Monument. This is a tribute to the 16 million Americans that died, basically that served in World War II, and the millions who served on the home front, as well as the 400,000 who gave the ultimate sacrifice and died during World War II, right? Now, the sad thing is, the greatest generation had to actually wait 60 years to get this beautiful monument. Now, we all know they were busy, rebuilding the world, laying the highway here in our country, right? Trying to win the Cold War, which they did. We know they were really busy doing all these things, but they had to wait 60 years for it, and it's pretty crazy, right? These monuments are not an easy thing to get done. So this monument is in the National Mall. It's on the east side of the Lincoln Reflection Pool, which you can see back there, and it's between the Lincoln Memorial and here the Washington Memorial, which some people will have a problem with. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But what really got this thing going was that there was a veteran of World War II, the greatest generation, Roger Durbin. He went and he talked to his Congress representative, Macy Captor, and he's like, why isn't there a World War II monument? It's crazy that there isn't a World War II monument. And she went to work. She got busy, went to work on legislation. Again, these things are never easy to put together, right? And the American Battle Monuments Commission gets in there, right? And they finally authorize to build it. Let's get this thing built, right? But then there's all sorts of issues going on, right? Reviews, legal suits, all that stuff. Just where's it gonna be? Nobody can agree. What's it gonna look like? Nobody can agree, right? And in the 1990s, things are getting a little desperate. They're starting to feel the heat because the World War II vets are passing away in the 90s pretty fast, right? And Congress is that they want what's left of the vets to see this. They got to do something fast, right? So they do. Congress is going to fast track it. No more reviews, no more legal laws, legal suits, none of that stuff. Fast track. Let's get this done. The boys deserve this, which are old men now, right? They deserve to have this. They deserve to see this before they pass away. So there's going to be 400 people who can apply. The architects, they're going to pick an Australian-American architect by the name of Frederick St. Florian. So he gets picked out of 400. You can see there's going to be 56 pillars here. They're going to represent the states and territories that were in the Union back during World War II, right? And there's an order. If you're not, it's not an obvious order, but if you find Delaware, which is first state status, first state in the nation, if you find Delaware, they come in left, right, from Delaware, or maybe it's right, left, I don't know. But they come in from Delaware, and the order they come in, that's where the pillars, the 56 pillars, are put up here, right? After Delaware. Now you can see you've got the Atlantic right there, the Atlantic and the Pacific arches. That represents the Atlantic and Pacific theaters of the war. This is a two-front war, extremely dangerous. Nobody wants to fight a two-front war. And on top of it, the Atlantic, yes, the Atlantic Ocean's right by us, but Europe is not. So they were and Japan was very far away. So this two-front war is very, very far away. It's very, very dangerous. No one wants to fight a war like that, but we do, and we win. And that's absolutely amazing. You'll also notice there's a bunch of wreaths around these pillars, and the oak wreaths, they represent our military strength, our military might, our industrial might, strength, right? That's what that represents. The wheat wreaths represent like our agricultural strength, right? The feeding of America. We make a lot of food, and we just didn't feed America. We fed the world, right? That's what that represents. The Freedom Wall, which you can see back there behind me, has 4,048 gold stars on it. Each star represents 100 American lives lost in World War II. Moment of silence there, I guess. the fountains that you see here. The fountains represent like a renewal, like peace, basically like a return to life after the war, the regular life after the war, okay? So now, when you look around at this, something that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention was that we were known as the arsenal of democracy. Our factories took a little time, but once they converted to war factories, they basically outproduced everybody by a lot and won the war for us. Ford it took a long time to really get going, but once Ford stopped building the cars and started building military stuff, it supplied the military on a big time basis, that assembly line. Okay, factories all over the country. I teach school in New Britain, Connecticut. Right, we got the Stanley factory there. They converted over, was building wartime materials, and it was so it was not just the big boys, but it was also the smaller factories all over the country converting to build military stuff. This arsenal of democracy. The story there is amazing. Hitler couldn't replace stuff, and we'd sink one ship, we'll put 30 more out. Saying Japan was the same sort of boat. They couldn't replace stuff, right? You sink one of our ships, we'll put 30 more out. Just amazing, right? How does the other side win, right? As long as our side just keeps putting another 30 out. It's crazy. Now, something that's not mentioned enough, I think, about World War II and the factories is the woman. We all know the woman came out of the kitchen and ran these factories, but what we don't know was that the ordnances, the bombs, the weapons, there was constant, at least in the beginning, there were constant accidents. Those factories were a very dangerous place for women to work. In the first 6 months of the war, it is said that more women lost their lives in those factories than we lost men on the front line in the fighting. Think about that for a minute. More women lost their life in factories, factory accidents with those weapons in the first 6 months of the war than we lost men fighting on the front. These factories are a scary place to be. Eventually, they're going to get safer, right? And eventually, our boys are going to become more adept to fighting over there in Europe and Asia. In the beginning, the Germans made fun of us. Even the English were like, oh, those Americans are so green. But what the Germans and even the English had to admit was, man, they learn quick and they think outside the box, right? And they win. They're winners. No doubt about it, right? So this wasn't easy. None of this was easy putting this all together. You had like some protests that were taking place. You had the National Coalition to Save Our Miles. Protest was saying, listen, we don't like it that the clear line between Lincoln and Washington is broken, right? We don't want that broken. But they were like, they built this place anyways. And they were like, listen, think about this. This doesn't take away from what Lincoln and Washington did. This adds to what they did. It reinforces what they did. It reinforces, the sacrifice for democracy, whatnot. This is not taken away from them. It adds, okay? And then some other protesters were like, hey, look at this thing. If you look at this thing, as cool looking as it is, it reminds some people of Albert Speer. And if you're not sure who Albert Speer was, he was the Nazis' architect, building up Germany with all the architecture in Germany. This looks a lot like a lot of stuff that Albert Speer designed for the Nazis. Things that make you say, Most of us don't know Albert Speer. We just think this is a really cool looking thing. Some of us do know Albert Speer and what the Nazis' architecture looked like. And they were like, do we really want our architecture to look like theirs? Well, I'm going to say it's here. It's beautiful. It's definitely worth seeing. On my Traveling Time with Dan show, we mix travel with history and with leadership. This is something, you come down, you travel down to Washington, D.C., you should definitely see this right now in the National Mall. See as much as you can see in the National Mall. You should definitely come down and see this. All right, everybody, I've given you a little bit of the history as well, so I'd say it's time now for the leadership. What's the leadership principle here? Here it is. Unity doesn't erase differences. It channels them toward a more common purpose. And that's what we had. It took a long time to do this. Hitler said the Americans a nation of immigrants will never come together. There are just too many differences, right? Well, we had a purpose, defending ourselves against Japan, defending ourselves against Hitler. He declared war on us like a couple days later after Pearl Harbor. We had a purpose, right? A common purpose, and we came together. We still had our differences. We still have our differences today, as you know, right? But we came together. All right, everybody, thank you for spending time with me today on the Travel on Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course, me, Dan Blanchard. We'll be back real soon. Another great episode somewhere else. You take care, and I'll see you then.